Good things come in small packages. Well, with some compromises. Or so I thought until I tried this new Samsung Galaxy S22. This is perhaps the first smallish S series phone with any form of meaningful battery life. It's obviously still not in the league of the big boys, but it makes owning a small Android phone a real option. Having said that, it will find few takers living in the shadow of its bigger brothers. If you're curious to know what makes this phone worth considering, or perhaps why you should skip it after all, watch this video till the end. A huge thanks to Smart Tel in Dwarka, Delhi for providing me early access to the S22 series phones. This is a well-known Samsung Smart Cafe in Dwarka and a really good place to make your Samsung phone purchase if you're located in the NCR region. Contact details on screen and in the description. Highlights of this year's flagship 6.1-inch S22 phone include Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 SoC, improved low-light photography, 6.1-inch 120Hz adaptive display with vision booster, adaptive pixel and detail enhancer tech for photography. But more on this later. I've had the Samsung S6 and S Edge phones in the past and they were pretty compact, where the S6 had terrible battery life with just a 2600 mAh battery. The S7 Edge was quite decent for the time, with a battery size increase of nearly 1100 mAh over the regular S6. The point I'm trying to make here is that they were pretty compact phones, and since then, although there have been compact Android flagships, they just can't seem to keep up in terms of battery life. This here is different, but more on that later. As usual, the design language follows Samsung flagship design ethos of the past several generations, and this is not radically different like the S22 Ultra, so it looks quite familiar to last year's models. And that is not necessarily a bad thing. Although if you were to experience the S22 Ultra, you would start to feel that this phone is not as premium as that, even though they're meant to be from the same family. Somehow the lightweight of this phone and the physical components make it feel more plasticky. On the flip side, it is a really comfortable phone to handle every day. It is almost the same size as an iPhone 13 Pro. In fact, it feels like an Android version of that phone. The S22 is lighter though, and that is one of its key strengths. Really, there's not much to say about the design of the phone. You will probably be buying an S22 if you want a compact Android flagship phone, and it certainly doesn't disappoint on that front. The Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 is an underwhelming processor if you look at the benchmarks. It's not much better than its predecessor, and sometimes unbelievably it lags behind it in some scores. But in reality, it makes the S22 a much better phone than the Exynos S21 ever was. Any of the Exynos S series phones that I have owned over the years tend to show alarming battery rate drops and thermal issues. These are two big improvements with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 powered S22. Although this is a much smaller chassis than the S22 Ultra that I also reviewed recently, links in the description, and it doesn't dissipate heat as effectively, it is still better in everyday tasks than Exynos powered devices. Make no mistake, it does not stay completely cool, but the temperature rise is not uncomfortable, and once the phone has been set up for a few days and finishes indexing and analyzing initial usage, it can very well be used without a case without feeling uncomfortable. Performance wise, it pretty much keeps up with the S22 Ultra, as it should. This is a nice, fast and fluid experience. Combine that with the adaptive 120Hz refresh rate display and you have a device that is very pleasurable to use. The display is only 1080p, but frankly, unless you pixel peep, you will not feel a difference, especially considering the smaller size of this display. What does feel different is the display scaling, so the text feels finer compared to the larger phones, where it feels like the font is in bold, even within apps like Facebook. In fact, this feels almost indistinguishable from the iPhone 13 Pro in terms of the display, with similar size text and only the whites being of a different hue, and that too because of the different ways in which Apple and Samsung use their True Tone and blue light filtering tech. The speakers are loud and clear, and the bottom speaker is thankfully on the right side and so is less likely to be covered when watching videos in landscape mode. In absolute terms, its bigger brothers with their bigger chassis are marginally louder, but let's just say that you will never be left wanting in terms of speaker performance. For its core functionality of being a phone, the S22 works very well. Callers are clear on the earpiece and network reception is strong. Callers will also be able to hear you clearly thanks to the excellent microphone clarity. This is a 5G phone and covers 16 sub-6 5G bands, which means you will have no problems connecting to a 5G spectrum when it launches in India or when you travel abroad. Samsung has traditionally had the lowest SAR values, and the S22 emits 1.05 watt per kilogram for head and 1.58 watt per kg for body. These are not the lowest numbers that Samsung phones have achieved, but in the same ballpark. So if this concerns you, these are some of the lowest radiation emitting flagships around. For comparison, the iPhone 13 Pro emits 1.20 watt per kg for head and 1.19 watt per kg for body. By now, we're all familiar with One UI being one of the best looking and surprisingly lightweight skin of Android. It is also now the longest supported version of Android with 4 years of software updates and an additional year of security updates. This is bettered only by Apple, and that is irrelevant to perhaps the majority of people looking to buy an Android phone. One surprise in the camera department was that this phone appears to record better 60 FPS video in 4K than the S22 Ultra. Blame it on that huge 108 MP sensor inside the Ultra or how the software handles this, but the Ultra had problems of jitter every few seconds when recording 4K 60 FPS video. This phone had no such issues under the same conditions. Even otherwise, photos are comparable, and the only thing that you really lose out is the 100x zoom, which is not a loss in any case, since that feature is still feeling like a gimmick, given how grainy photos become at that zoom level. Samsung is touting two technologies here, adaptive pixel and detail enhancer. Whilst adaptive pixel makes the camera switch between 50MP and 12MP photos based on the light levels for better photos, the detail enhancer is a nod to computational photography using AI to improve clarity and detail. Frankly, the end result is pleasant and a slight improvement over the already vibrant and good Samsung flagship camera experience that we're used to. This phone will deliver upwards of 5 hours of screen on time depending on how you use it, even with 2 SIM cards, and with the 120Hz adaptive refresh rate enabled, it will achieve these figures. So this makes it a real option for those looking for a compact phone. It's now in the acceptable ballpark, and given that it has a 800 mAh disadvantage to phones like the S21 FE and can still match or outdo them in stamina, goes a long way to show how much of a difference a non-Exynos chip makes. Remember that this phone, unlike the S22 Plus and the Ultra, only supports up to 25 watt charging. But we've seen that on those phones, the difference in speed when charging with 45 watts is only marginal, and since the regular S22 has a much smaller battery, this is a non-issue in my view. So this here is a refinement of the formula. It is an excellent small phone and a real option for those not wanting to lug around much larger but much more common flagships. Really, there's not much to criticize with this phone, and it has a very specific target audience which it will please. If you want the best of the best, look at the Ultra, provided cost is no issue, and if you can handle the big size of that phone. Along with that compromise, you will also get better heat dissipation and even better battery life. And for those that are looking for a middle path, the S22 Plus may make a lot of sense. It is essentially the same phone as the S22 with just a bit bigger size and some nice to have upgrades like support for faster charging than the S22. So if you're still watching and if you're still interested in this size of phone, then the S22 currently is one of the best choices available. If you'd like to know more about the S22 Ultra, do watch my review of that phone, and if you found this content useful, please consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in my next one.